This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vasugi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and we're so thrilled to have you back for another episode. And you're in for a treat because there's a lot of people collecting information, studying different books, podcasts, videos, webinars, all sorts of things. There's information overload. But how do you really study effectively? And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. So, Arash, you are an excellent student, someone who's been studying now for 18 years. I'd love to know how you study.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think this is such an important topic because I can look back. I mean, I've shared my story on several occasions, but for 3 years, I wasn't getting any results. And it was because I was studying like I did when I was in school. It was more memorizing, it was gathering information, and I wasn't creating any results. And that's why knowing isn't where the power is. It's so easy to get information now with YouTube, with social media. It's so easy to have access to books. It's so easy to get information. But information doesn't create results. Application does. And there's only two ways you gain awareness. One is through study, and the second is through action. And the way I study is action. And I'll share that with you because first off, I want to let you understand there's three parts to creating results in terms of study. Number one, you get intellectually involved with the idea. So you're like, oh, this idea really moves me. Like, I can do this. And that's where most people stop. They just get intellectually involved. And that's step one. Step two is now you've got to get emotionally involved. Now we've got to transfer it, what we're studying, from our conscious to our subconscious. So repetition is critical. And the third part is you have to step out and act on what you're studying. You make it part of your identity through the doing. See, nobody gains confidence. Nobody creates results by study by itself. And, you know, I can go so deep into this because the best thing that I can share with you that I implemented was studying myself. And so it's not just studying the information, it's studying yourself and watching your behaviors. Watching how am I behaving, or watching your triggers. What was the prequel that caused that trigger? And this is how you study yourself. I'll tell you this, my mentor was in his 80s and he was still studying every day. And I remember one day I asked him, I said, you are a master at this. Why do you keep studying? He goes, I'm not even close to where I think I can go. There's no limit. He goes, Arash, if I could tell you one piece of advice right now, he said, never not study an hour a day. And you can always watch somebody who's performed the results that you admire. And that was the case for me. And, you know, for the last 15 years, I learned how to study from him. And I can tell you, like if I look right now, I have something I'm reading right now. It's 5 paragraphs. I mean, you guys can't see it if you're listening to the podcast, but it's 5 paragraphs. I'm only focused on one of the paragraphs and I'm studying it and I'm reading it 5 times a day. And I'm literally implementing it. I'm implementing it in my mind. I'll show you something. I think you'll get a lot out of this. So I'll read you the paragraph I'm studying. I'll tell you how I'm studying it. I think that might help. What do you think, Mike?
I love that idea.
Okay, so this is the paragraph I'm studying. And I'll tell you exactly how I study it. It says, when you're able to control the movements of your attention in the subjective world, you can modify or alter your life as you please. So I'll stop at that sentence and I'll ask myself, I've got to master subjective control, which we did a podcast on a few weeks ago. And subjective control is not letting the outside dictate the inside. So when I study that first line, I'm thinking to myself, I can modify my life. Basically, I can create anything I want if I master subjective control. That's what I hear. And the second sentence says, but this cannot be achieved if you allow your attention to be attractive constantly from without. It's just reaffirming to me, you've got to not let anything on the outside disturb you. And I'll ask myself while I'm studying this, I said, have I let anything disturb me to this point? Or if I did, why? Why am I, because it's a dumb idea. Why would I let anything take control over me? That's how what I would be thinking. Then he says, each day, set yourself the task of deliberately withdrawing your attention from the outside world and focus it inside. So deliberately, I've got to spend time in my day using my imagination, using autosuggestion, only thinking of what I want. Wealth is created through feeling good. Am I feeling good? So I'm objectively spending time in my day to focus on this. In other words, concentrate on those thoughts or moods which you deliberately determine. Then those things that now restrict you will fade and drop away. Now I'm creating a new identity. The new program will override the old program. This is the most important line. The day you achieve control of the movements of your attention in the subjective world, you're a master of your fate. So I keep studying this just like this every day. And I will stop myself and ask myself, and I know people are listening, one paragraph, that's how I studied. That's how I changed my attitude. I studied a few paragraphs 1,000 times that create the big results. And just remember this. No matter what we do in our life, less is more.
All right, Raj, I know we're going to get lots of questions, so let us know where that paragraph is from so that everybody can go find it.
Sure. It's from Power of Awareness with Awakened Imagination. And it's in the chapter on awareness in the beginning of the book. I mean, it's such an important paragraph. I mean, for me, subjective control is what changed my life. Mm-hmm. Because that was when I had my attitude dictated by me. So attitude is studied. Attitude is our thoughts intellectually involved, our feelings getting emotionally involved, and our actions stepping out and doing it. So study really changed the game for me. Like, I won't stop studying this until I master it. Even if I study this for 2 years. Now, I used to, like, if you were in my office, you'll see more than now 400 books that I've read, okay? A lot of those books I didn't study it the right way. Now I studied them the right way. So it may take me 6 months to read a book, but I don't read full books. I read parts that I want to strengthen as a part of me. And so it may be a chapter in a book. It may be a few paragraphs until I make it where it would be harder for me not to do it than to do it.
This is so good. And, I would love to get your thoughts on this because I think a lot of people convince themselves that they are studying. I feel like the lines between entertainment and study have been blurred over the last several years as more content creation has been on social media and YouTube. People think, oh yeah, I follow several coaches or I follow several motivational people, so I'm studying all the time. That's not studying, and study is not for entertainment. Study is to improve your results. So will you talk about being really deliberate, and you used that word just a minute ago, being really deliberate about the reason you're studying and what you're studying, and then going right into implementation so that you're not just gathering information hoping to be entertained?
Yeah, for the reason you study is to get better, is to become more aware. Everything is about awareness. But when we use the word deliberate, it's a very powerful word when you are putting all your focus on a purpose of what you're getting out of it. So I don't just study just to check a box. I'm studying to get better in that area. And that's when I made my change in my life, I learned how to study. I remember, I'm like, the way I'm doing it isn't working. And I found somebody who did it the right way. He taught me the same thing he got taught by his mentor. And he told me the same story I'm sharing with you. It was like literally the exact same of what he got out of it. And I remember my mentor's mentor was Earl Nightingale. And he said, one day he went to Earl and he said, you're reading the same book. He said, I'll keep reading it until I implement and make it a part of me. And the same thing, like it just passes generationally for somebody who really wants to win in life. They'll do the study. What most people are doing is they use it as a badge of honor. I'm a positive person. And I listen to podcasts. I listen to this. It's not what you're listening to. It's what you're implementing. I can't emphasize that more. If you're not implementing it, you're just gathering information and you're studying like I did, like when I was in school, you're memorizing. You want to know this. You want to have this program of knowingness that I know, and you'll know it if you know it because you're implementing it. You don't try to implement it. It just becomes a part of you. And that's what we call awareness. When you're aware of something, you do it. And you'll be able to go back and deconstruct why you did it. And it'll be, your subconscious literally takes over and then it will just unfold for you.
You know, Raj, there's a lot of people who can regurgitate lots of motivational quotes, lots of, great law of attraction type things, manifestation things, but their results don't reflect that they know that information. So when do you believe someone knows that they know what they've been studying? When the results reflect it?
The results always tell the story. They always tell the truth. The results are the compass of our life. They tell us what's going on inside of us. So you don't know a thing until you do it. And then you keep doing it better and better through repetition. And that's why repetition is so important to master. It's so illogical to your program. It's like, why am I reading this again? Why am I reading it? It doesn't still the mind. He goes, like this paragraph I've read off and on for the last 4 years, off and on. Like right now I'm focused on it. So it's something that I'm implementing as part of me because our mind is like a battlefield, and the most well-conditioned mind always wins. And the universe, the world, however you want to look at it, it'll make cowards out of us all who is not well-conditioned, just like a well-conditioned athlete. If you are not well-conditioned, eventually the heat's going to get to you. Your competition's going to get to you. We are at our weakest when we're tired. So when you have a well-conditioned mind, you go from first gear to third gear to fifth gear, whenever you want. And that's why you want to spend the time learning how to study. Just remember, you're not studying until you implement it, until you step out and act, until you get emotionally involved with that. And that's when the game changes. I'll tell you a story. About a year ago, I was coaching a client, and she was referred to me by somebody. And I get on our first call. She goes, Raj, I'm such a positive person. I've been studying personal development for 10 years. And I've got a great attitude. And then I started talking to her. And the first thing I told her, I said, you don't have a great attitude. I want you to be aware of that first. I said, you're telling me what's wrong. You're complaining. And I said, what have you implemented? And what are your processes? She's like, well, what do you mean by processes? And I said, well, what are you doing every day? Well, today I do this, whatever. Tomorrow I'll do something different. I said, no, you have it wrong. As much as you've been studying, and I believe your intent has been right. I told her this. But I said, you are not studying. You're just gathering information. And I said, tell me your results. She's like, well, they're not what I want them to be. Well, I know. Like our processes, I don't like the word routine because routine it's like monotonous. Like I want something powerful. That's why I say processes. Processes, and studying is a process. And you, just like your morning routine, you should have a process for studying. But to me, it's not just studying aimlessly. It's not masterminding with somebody aimlessly. You do it with a purpose of what you want to strengthen. And that's why it's so important to understand it has to be done on 3 planes. I'm going to say it again. You get intellectually involved, you get emotionally involved, then you step out and act. If we don't have 3 for 3, you're gathering information.
This is so good, Raj. You just talked a lot about being well-conditioned, and you're now at a level where you've created significant results. You're also coaching thousands of clients around the world create significant results. Are you still doing the same daily processes that got you there, including auto-suggestion that we've talked about on the podcast, and the daily, like a morning routine, daily study, gratitude? Are you still doing all of those things even at the level you're at now?
Yeah, I'm doing them. I'm just doing them with a stronger attitude. I'm doing them with a stronger image. So they're much more powerful than what I used to do. So it's literally like I'm doing a different process because I'm different. And that's why I'm always talking about we want to build a bigger idea of ourselves. When we build a bigger idea, what's happening is we're not showing up as the same person. But attitude, like the way I'm talking about attitude right now is a confidence, a certainty. So like my auto suggestions are a lot more powerful now than what they used to be because I'm better, I'm more aware, and I've implemented more. And I can go back and look at how I used to do things and compare it to where I am now. And I bet you a year from now, I guarantee it, I'll say that person's outdated. And that comes through studying yourself. Like, let's talk about not just studying yourself. This is the most important part of studying. This is how I created the Power of Five that we've discussed. And so everything I do is I'm studying myself. Did I make decisions based from the person I wanted to be? Did I have the attitude from that person? So I'm asking myself these questions. Was I building a bigger idea of myself today through action? And what was my standard? So that's how, in my discipline, like all five is it's a bulletproof process to prevent you from drifting and get you to study yourself.
Raj, the attitude that you do things with now is also the result of stacking evidence and consistency. Would you agree with that? So over the years, in the beginning, whenever you're implementing a new process, you're like, I hope this is going to. Then as soon as you've seen it work, you're thinking, this is going to work. I'm going to do it with even stronger attitude, with more focus, with more deliberateness. So what do you have to say about staying consistent in the beginning, even when you haven't seen it work for yourself?
Well, this is where you got to build faith, but you're not going to achieve any goal without faith. And faith is seeing what you want, regardless of the appearance of the outside. And you could go back and look at that paragraph I studied, that I'm studying. That's what he's talking about. Anytime we're in subjective control, we control our fate. But faith is seeing what you want, believing that in the incredible power you have access to, which is your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your higher faculties. You have constant support when you make a decision. But that is faith. And listen, I will tell you this. It's like it was yesterday this happened. When I was losing, and I got introduced to someone who had an enormous impact on my life, my mentor. He said to me, if you'll do exactly what I tell you, everything will change. I didn't believe it. I did not believe it. But I said, my way is not working. Like, I knew that. That's why I was willing to burn my bridges to go work with him. And I didn't have a lot of bridges to burn. I mean, I really was really in a bad spot. But I knew, what if it works? In that time, I believe that decision changed my image almost immediately, because I took my ego out of it and I said, I'm just going to follow somebody who had performed the results. And that's what I did. And I did exactly from the best of my ability, of my understanding at that time. I implemented it, and then my results started changing. But you're talking about consistency. Consistency, the man or woman who's most consistent always wins. And see, you're not going to see the results all the time. You're not going to see it right away either. Sometimes you may, but sometimes you will not see it right away. But if you keep stacking those wins over and over and over again, in a 30-day period, you'll create a massive jump, and you will start seeing the results.
Absolutely. All right, Raj, let's get into the action step for today.
Well, I would love for you to learn how to study. And I would love for you to look at, where do I want to improve the most, whatever it is, okay? Let's say it's discipline. Say, I want to improve on watching my disciplines, or watching why I shame myself, why I'm talking to myself in a certain way. And then I want you to study that part of you. So observe yourself and ask yourself, where do I drop? Where do I drop my standard? and find out what that trigger is. That trigger is the greatest gift you're ever going to get. And then I want you to do the exact opposite. I want you to stop it and start thinking in subjective control where you're dictating what you think about. And I want you to pick one thing. Start with one thing and make this a non-negotiable every night, or maybe a couple times during the day. You do a check-in about the Power of Five. That is studying you. I want you to get in the habit of studying you, because you can tell me how many books you read. Great. But if you tell me what you implement, I'll tell you where you're going. I will tell you where you're going based on what you implement. And remember, the Power of Five is every decision comes either from your goal or from the person you want to become. Every attitude comes from the person you want to become or your goal. Every discipline comes from that. Every standard comes from that. And your image is going to be enormous. And I can tell you, as your image changes, your results change. There's nothing that I can tell you more accurately than that. You change your image, you change your results. You change your image through action, through the doing. Nobody learns anything without having that experiential experience. And it's a visceral experience where you could feel it. And that's what I want you to do. Study yourself. Go back, and if you want to study what I'm studying, if that interests you, I don't care what you study, but you have to study yourself as part of the deal.
I love it. Arash, thank you so much. This has been an incredible episode. Thank you all for joining us. Please leave us a rating and review. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Seven Figure Standard podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Seven Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Seven Figure Standard.